The following program is a production of Pioneer Public Television. This program on Pioneer Public Television is funded by the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund, with money from the vote of the people of Minnesota on November 4, 2008. Additional support provided by Mark and Margaret Yackel-Julien in honor of Shalom Hill Farm, a nonprofit rural education retreat center in a beautiful prairie setting near Windham in southwestern Minnesota. ShalomHillFarm.org. The Arrowwood Resort and Conference Center, your ideal choice for Minnesota resorts offering luxury townhomes, 18 holes of golf, Darling Reflection Spa, Big Splash Water Park, and much more. Alexandria, Minnesota, a relaxing vacation or great location for an event. Explore alex.com. Easy to get to, hard to leave.
Welcome to Postcards. I'm Dana Johnson. This week on Postcards, we'll meet two former members of the 1960s pop band, Bobby Vee and the Shadows, and hear how they're keeping the music alive through a tribute band featuring the likes of Ritchie Valens, the Big Bopper, and Buddy Holly. Then we'll drop by Rock House Productions in St. Joseph, Minnesota, and talk to the sons of the legendary Bobby Vee.
I had been playing in a jazz trio with my older brother, and Bobby Corm had been playing in a big band. And we went to see Jerry Lee Lewis, I think it was at the Crystal Ballroom, and so we decided we're going to have a rock and roll band. So we started rehearsing in '58. I'm Dick Dunkirk. I played string bass in a jazz group, but I played electric bass with the Shadows, and I was 19 years old. They didn't find out until the next morning. They crashed about midnight, they figure, and they found the plane right away in the morning. I don't think it had sunk in that three of the biggest singers right underneath Elvis Presley had been killed all at once.
You know, it was a real letdown to all of us, and Bobby Vee was really hurt because he was, really into the Buddy Holly thing, I'm Bob Corm, original member of Bobby Vee and the Shadows. I was a drummer, and when we started the group, I was 18 years old and played with the group till '64.
We were planning on going to the show, yes, we were planning on going to the show.
Before the accident, we were really looking forward to see the Stars coming, and because we were working on doing some of their songs so we could pick up a lot.
What happened was when they called for people to replace him on the show, we called up and we offered our services, but we only knew 6 songs that we had rehearsed. So we came down to the show and we did 6 songs.
When we filled in for Buddy Holly, I was pretty nervous because I thought whoever was left, there'd be a drummer there that would be fantastic, and I couldn't compete with him. So I was kind of nervous. And then after we got on stage, the people clapped and clapped and clapped for Bobby Vee and the Shadows. They were hollering, "We want Bobby Vee and the Shadows," So we came back on for encore.
Later on in the show, they said, "We need to have you guys play some more stuff." And then, well, we don't know any more than 6 songs, so we did the 6 songs over again. But it was quite a deal. We just wore casual clothes. It was pretty much just standard. It wasn't a real dress-up deal.
We went over to Anthony's. Anthony's used to be, I don't know if it's still in business, department store, and we had a white vest that buttoned from the middle on down, and we had a shirt, polka dot shirt with a white and black vest and black pants.
The first show we played was in Wahpeton, North Dakota, just 50 miles south of Fargo-Moorhead. It was like an armory or something, and I think the stage collapsed on us or something. They had it up on plywood and cinder blocks or something, and we had some problems. So it was a kind of a rude opening for the band. We played about a year. We had our hit record about a year after the Winter Dance Party, and so we did most of the venues that the Winter Dance Party tour did. Our first Billboard hit was in the summer of 1960. It was called Devil or Angel. It was a remake of a 50s doo-wop song by the Crests. Well, we had an earlier hit before that was called Susie Baby, and that was #1 in Minneapolis in '59, but it never went national. It went on the charts, but it was not a national hit, a big hit.
I always claim that Susie Baby was the first hit because it did hit 76 in the nation. Now, it was not a big hit, but I still contribute Susie Baby because it wasn't for Susie Baby, there would be no Bobby Vee in the Shadows. I can guarantee you that. And so I have a soft spot for the very first hit. But it was great because every place we played, from Fargo to the east to the west, they were playing Susie Baby by Bobby Vee and the Shadows.
So the first big national hit was Devil or Angel, summer of 1960. So we were still playing weekends, and then we went, never forget it, we played the Prom Ballroom and packed up and went to the New Jersey State Fair, Trenton, New Jersey, 18,000 people. And it was, we were teenagers, and it was a phenomenal deal. So it was quite memorable. Well, it was just an absolute storybook situation that when we had the hit record, we played up and down the East Coast, all these big venues. We played probably the biggest venue, well-known venue in the world is the Paramount Theater right on Times Square, right off of Times Square there with all these big stars, and it was just unbelievable. Fun. Bob Dylan was in our band for one weekend in the spring of '59, and we tried him out, and then we didn't keep him. So we didn't fire him, but I mean, he just tried out, and we just said, "Nah, it ain't gonna work," So I think Bobby Vee ran into him a few years back, and they kind of joked about that.
We met Bob Dylan when he was in Fargo, and when he played with us, he played 2 gigs with us, and they were in small towns. And he was very timid, had his head down. I didn't see his eyes all night long. He didn't say anything. He had no personality, and we were always signing autographs and thanking the people for coming, this and that. He said nothing, and he just wasn't like us.
We certainly should have hired him, I tell you that right now. So, but when we were elected to the Mid-American Music Hall of Fame in 2005, we sent him an invitation to come and be part of the band, but he never showed up. So I'm sure you probably forget that episode. We were elected to the Mid-American Music Hall of Fame in 2005, and then about a year later we started doing these tribute shows because everybody said, gee, you should get the band back together. And then somebody wanted to hire us for a party, at a theater someplace, pretty good size, and they said, well, can you do like a Buddy Holly tribute? If you got to get dresses up in the glasses and stuff and the white coat and all this and that. And we found a guy that did that, and then we did the show and we sold it out. That works for us. So then we're on our 3rd Buddy Holly guy now, and I think he's probably the best.
Back in 2006, I was in a live production of the Buddy Holly story, and I was driving down about a year and a half ago, driving down the road, and I got a phone call out of the blue, and it was Dick Dunkirk, and he said, I heard you're the person to call for this, and I had no idea what he was talking about, but he told me what it was all about, and I thought, hey, that would be a lot of fun to do, so here I am. Buddy Holly, to me, was one of the 4 pioneers of rock and roll, and I grew up listening to some of his things, but as I listened to more of like the Beatles and groups like that, it was very evident that his influence was there, and so he did have an influence on me as well.
By running these tribute shows, it makes so many people happy. After the shows, I talk to people and they say, "Oh, we're so glad you brought back memories," and we sat and chatted about it after the show. The wife and I, or a bunch of us, chatted about what we did, and the memories are the big thing of doing the tribute show.
Let's rock and roll.
I think it's important to have a show like this so that we can keep the music alive, that we can bring the music to the people that really appreciate who were there, and hopefully to entice the younger generations into being able to continue on with it. When we've done shows, it's very, very gratifying to have people come up to us after show and say, "You did an awesome job. It was just like being there." I've had several people that came up and said they were at the Surf Ballroom, and they said it was just like stepping back into time. And so that makes me feel very, very proud that I can, do the job that I do.
We just see the look on people's faces when they're hearing this music, and they just love it. I mean, it's like touching home plate for these people. You got to remember that these women were 16, 17, and that's when the record buying crowd is like 16. Like Justin Bieber is today what Bobby Vee and Buddy Holly was back in the 50s. And this is their music, their own special music, and that's why it's so much fun and they come back year after year after year, and they just, so we're very happy about it.
For a list of performances, go to shadowsband.com. Now we'll join Jeff and Tommy Vee in their recording studio, Rock House Productions, where we'll hear about what it's like to grow up with the pop star Bobby Vee as a father and how the experience has influenced their own musical endeavors.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Bobby Vee.
People ask us often what it was like to grow up with a famous dad, or a dad who was a famous musician. The stock kind of answer is, you have nothing to compare it to. It's the way we grew up. It's all relative. You kind of think, oh, well, everybody's dad must do cool stuff like that, And, as you grow up, get a little older, you realize that's not the case.
So much of the things that we experienced with our rock star dad were just normal to us. I mean, we didn't know any different. So, didn't really pay any attention to him being anything other than dad until we moved here, and then it became a big deal. We grew up in a neighborhood where there were a lot of famous people, and if you weren't famous in those neighborhoods, you worked in the industry. You were an agent, you were an attorney, you were whatever, producer, writer. So it was really, really normal, and I went to school with, Bob Newhart's kids and Jerry Lewis's kids and Carol O'Connor's kids, and so it was normal to have famous dads, It was when we moved here that it was kind of a big deal for a guy like Bobby Vee to move to a town like St. Cloud, Minnesota, and all of a sudden everybody was aware of it, and he was the only celebrity in town.
In small town America, small town America.
When we were young, he traveled a lot. That was hard. But when he was home. He'd be the one dad home during the day, playing with all the kids and throwing the baseball around while the other dads were at work. So it was unique, but it was a neat way to grow up. And it took till later years before we really understood how different our upbringing was.
Here's the best way I can describe it. I have a son who's 10 years old, and he's been drumming since he was 2. And he's a phenomenal drummer. And when he was growing up, every house that he went to had a drum set in it. Either my house or my brother's house, my parents' house. He has another uncle from the other side of the family that's a drummer. So to him, drum sets were kind of like bathrooms. Every house had one. And it was just normal. And then it was as he got older and started getting into school and going to friends' houses, and it's like, well, where's the drum set? Well, we don't have them. What do you mean? It's like you don't have a kitchen, And that's what it was like for us. It was, the older you get, the more you realize that it is unique and it is different. You know, I mean, the kinds of things that happened were more with the kinds of people that came around. You know, Paul McCartney or Jeff Lynne or Bob Dylan or these kinds of people swinging by the house, that kind of stuff. But even then, it was just kind of like, oh, you know, those people are here.
I'm sure most, you know, children of movie stars and rock stars deal with a certain level of trying to find who they are and how they fit in. It's, you know, if your dad is runs a hardware store or is a lawyer, anyone can do those things. They just have to do the right things and work hard. But not anyone can be a famous singer or have a hit record.
I've never been trapped in his shadow, you know, and a lot of kids get into that. I've seen a lot of kids fall under that, how do I be this guy? It's not going to happen. I mean, that's the difference between having a dad who's a rock star or maybe a really successful athlete and a dad who's a CEO of a company who at some point he can hand you the keys to the building and say it's all you, you know. We can train, we can learn our instruments, we can train, we can write, we can do all these things, but it's a fickle deal. And why is one guy a huge star and one guy not? Nobody knows, you know. But we've never looked at it that way. I mean, I've never wanted to be him. He has had an amazing ride. He's had success that very few people will ever have. And I've never wanted that. I've never wanted to be a pop star. I never wanted to be a teen idol. I just wanted to be a player. And I've been able to do that at a very, very high level because of him. So I've always embraced it.
I think each one of us kids probably had a different sort of experience and how we handled that. For me, I mean, fairly early on, I kind of saw that this isn't in my skill set. I'm not going to get up there and sing these tunes, and even if I could, you know, to have that kind of success, I mean, there's so many things play into it. You know, you have to have a lot of opportunities and a lot of luck, and it's everything. It needs to be a perfect storm of opportunity to really make a star, as it were. So I guess I had times when I was younger thinking that was an attainable thing, but by the time I was in college and working my way through those years, I thought, you know, I better make some other good plans, because being a rock star is kind of a long shot.
Being the son of a rock star, for lack of a better term, myself and my brothers were interested in music from the time we were kids, and we had recording studios in our houses going back to when we were kids in Los Angeles.
We always had studios. We grew up as kids in little, you know, first it was just in one little room in the house, then the garage, then off the back of the house, and now it's its own little building in St. Joe, Minnesota. We grew up in a musical house, obviously, with a rock star dad, and just surrounded by music, surrounded by his friends playing music and them rehearsing and going to recording sessions and going to shows. So myself and my brothers grew up around instruments and around music.
Instruments everywhere, and nothing was off limits. So we were encouraged to play around with it and mess around with it and occasionally break things and whatever, as kids do.
It's just kind of a natural progression. Sooner or later, you pick that thing up and learn a chord, and doing what all kids do, you know, play in the school bands, take music lessons.
So we kind of just started by just goofing around with things, and then as we started to take it serious, Jeff kind of settled on drums, Robbie was playing guitar, and I kind of settled on bass, and immediately we started a band. Before any of us could really even play, we had a band. We had bands by the time we were in 6th, 7th, 8th grade, and we were playing little church functions and little teen dances, and then that led to ultimately playing in clubs. Never really thought about doing anything with my dad. That was just kind of happened, that he had a band turnover where several guys in the band were leaving, and he needed to hire players, and there we were.
So we did that and played with Dad for probably a better part of 20 years, all the while also playing with other people, playing in the recording studio, playing on other people's records. I mean, Tom and I are probably playing in 4 or 5 different shows right now. Most of them just play once in a while.
I think 92 was when we first started touring with him, and it lasted up until he retired last summer. So it was a pretty good, basically 25-year run on the road. And all the while we kept our own bands going and recorded. We did 5 CDs on our own and you know, released stuff and have also played with other people. So it just, again, kind of like Dad's deal, we never really designed anything. It just kind of happened, and one thing leads to another, and you get an offer to do a tour and you go do it. You get an offer to do a record and you go do it, and before you know it, you're kind of in the business.
Rockhouse Productions was really our studio, and the first legitimate studio we built was at my folks' house, off the back of their house in like 1989, and we called it Rockhouse. And Rockhouse is a Roy Orbison tune, and there's no real reason. We just thought it's a great song. We have a studio at our house, Rockhouse. Sounds good.
We started it in the mid-'90s, but we moved to this location in 2000, and we are kind of an all things music business. We're a recording studio, we're a production house, a management company.
My brother Tommy and myself have built a business really separate from, you know, even though we still play and perform, our business is really built around the business side of the business. And you know, these are we couldn't have done this. We couldn't have learned this in college. We couldn't have this business by reading about it in a book and studying it for years. It's really the result of years of actual experience. So I just feel fortunate that I've been able to stay in music and work with music, even if I'm not playing music, and have a career and be, you know, my own boss.
Growing up in this business, we kind of learned how to do everything. Touring with my dad, we learned how to manage him, and actually did take over his management for the last 15 to 20 years of his career. We managed him. So we learned how to do that, and then in touring with him, we learned how to road manage, and we learned how to produce shows. So our current business, Rockhouse Productions, does all of those things. We literally manage several acts, we record acts, we manage and produce events, we buy shows for venues, we have a couple of casino clients. So we really do everything, and it's busy.
Rockhouse Productions, like any business, we're just continue to grow it. I mean, we're really happy with where we're at with this business.
The future of our business is kind of up in the air. We never set out for it to be any one thing, so we let it be whatever it is, and because of that, it turns. And it's, I mean, the things that we're really hyper-focused on right now, 3 years ago weren't even on our radar. I mean, there weren't even things we were considering. So it really turns, and what our goal is just to continue to roll with the punches and take the opportunities that present themselves, and they lead us down roads that are just like, wow, never thought we'd be doing this.
I think a family business in music would be the same as a family business doing anything. I mean, the likelihood of people driving each other nuts, I'm sure, is really high, and, you know, mixed opinions and personalities. We have our ups and downs, but Tommy and I are pretty close. You know, we have our differences. We know how to kind of stay out of each other's way. We know that each of us has different strong suits, so we just back off.
It really is, at the end of the day, like any business. Everybody has to have a role to play, and you have to stay out of each other's space. If you're constantly micromanaging each other, it's not going to work. And so Jeff and I have a really good way of doing that. And I think it stems from being a bass player and a drummer. A drummer has a job to do that only he can do, and a bass player has a job to do that only he can do. And we kind of had years and years of doing that first, and then we started a business together, and now there are aspects of our business that he handles. And I help when he needs it, but otherwise I stay out of the way. And there's a side of our business that I run, and he helps when I need it, but he stays out of the way. So, and that's why it works. This studio that we're sitting in has never been asked to do anything other than exist. We don't expect it to pay any of the bills. It's just here, and it's really our toy box. But as we've been able to dedicate more time and effort to it, it's taken off and really turned into an entity that stands on its own, and has become a great resource for central Minnesota. We get a lot of business out of Minneapolis. We get a lot of business out of basically the entire central Minnesota community is using the studio.
The art and music scene in Minnesota is amazing. Twin Cities, I think, has been an incredible market. We've traveled around the world and a lot around the U.S., and I've always been biased to the Twin Cities. The amount of music, the amount of theater, the amount of art, and maybe partly to do with just long, cold winters and people just stay in and play guitar and, you know, learn lines for for theater shows.
Minneapolis has as much to offer as LA, New York, Nashville, Chicago. But we're kind of out of the way, so people just leave us alone. And it's a scene that can really develop unto itself and not be entirely based on another scene.
I'm not sure if I would have been a musician if I didn't grow up. And I mean, I think most people are a product of their experience, you know. I mean, I love music, and I don't think anyone can teach that. So the likelihood that I would have been involved with music, I would like to think I probably would have. I mean, a real connection to music.
Music for me has always been, like I think for everybody, is a vehicle to express yourself. And it's such a wide umbrella. I mean, there's writing, there's performing, there's playing for the sake of playing, which at the end of the day is still my favorite thing to do. But, I mean, really, I can't imagine life without that vehicle for expressing myself.
That's all for this week. For more information, go to our website. See you again next time on Postcards.
This program on Pioneer Public Television is funded by the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund, with money from the vote of the people of Minnesota on November 4, 2008. Additional support provided by Mark and Margaret Yekel-Julien in honor of Shalom Hill Farm, a nonprofit rural education retreat center in a beautiful prairie setting near Windham in southwestern Minnesota. ShalomHillFarm.org. The Arrowwood Resort and Conference Center, your ideal choice for Minnesota resorts offering luxury townhomes, 18 holes of golf, Darling Reflection Spa, Big Splash Water Park, and much more. Alexandria, Minnesota, a relaxing vacation or great location for an event. Explore alex.com. Easy to get to, hard to leave.